Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, earlier in the day, later in the day, depending on where you're at. Thanks for joining us. We're going to give people another minute or so to join, and then we'll go ahead and get things going. Thanks so much for being here. I see some people whose names I recognize from conversations and from our team, and also a bunch of names I don't recognize. So this is very exciting for me. We've done a couple of these webinars that are more marketing focused and how to use Firefly, and this one's specifically advanced accounting. So I'm very excited to see a bunch of new names on here. All right, and while everyone's joining, if you want, you can throw in the chat. Great opportunity to test out the chat for later on questions, but also for fun. Throw in what park you're from and where in the world you're located. It's always fun to see the different time zones that we're in different parts of not just the one country, but multiple countries and around the world. Adrienne and I are in 2 different countries and 2 different parts of the same continent. Awesome. Well, I'm going to go ahead and kick things off. So welcome officially to our S'mores Success. We did a round of S'mores Success themed trainings last year around accounts that were moving over from our older platform Astra over to Firefly, and we decided to bring it back since this is more of a technical training style of webinar today. So we're going to be focused on accounting. Adrienne is our in-house accounting expert, and a lot of our team is playing catch up as well to be able to help you guys with those kinds of questions that might get sent our way. So today what we're going to be talking through is common end of day errors and how to troubleshoot them. So there's a lot of, Adrienne has some info on, what are we actually looking at when you get an error and where do you go from there? And then we have resources for after this call for future that you can reference as well. How to use payment reconciliation, reading and reconciling the journal entry summaries, exporting our accounting data like to QuickBooks, and then some Q&A time and some Firefly updates for you guys. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen, and Adrienne, take it away for us. Thank you so much.
All right, thanks. And hi, everyone. I'm just going to share here for a sec. Just let me know that you can see it when it comes up here, just so I'm not plowing ahead. Okay, good.
Yep.
All right, so this isn't so much the accounting setup. If you do need to still set up your accounting, we do have an awesome setup guide in our knowledge base that has all the information I hope that you could possibly want about how to set that all up. So we're starting assuming that everything's been set up in your park and you're kind of, ready to do the end of day or have been doing them and are running into a few problems and wanting I'm available, the team's available to help you get all that done, but definitely check out this article first. It even tells you suggested account types and all that stuff too, which might be helpful later on with some of the errors that we'll be looking at. So I'm going to start with the common errors because we can't reconcile if we can't batch out, right? So under accounting and end of day, I have broken my system pretty well here. So if we do our payment side, just for reference, I am on the cash basis 2-step method right now. Doing the end of day and the error troubleshooting is the same across all types of accounting. So it doesn't matter if you're using cash, hybrid, or accrual, the troubleshooting will be the same regardless. So this should apply to anybody using any type of the accounting methods. First, we're going to do the payment side though, and generally I find that there aren't a whole lot of errors that people find on the payment reconciliation. This is probably the easiest part to set up and the one that goes the smoothest. The one thing that might come up though is you'll notice that after I hit generate here, my post batch button isn't lit up. And if you take any cash payments, you do have to enter the actual amount of cash collected before you're able to post the batch. So especially if you haven't been taking a lot of cash yet this season, or you just take it once in a blue moon, if you're not noticing that this is lit up blue, it's probably because you're missing the actual amount here. The other thing that can happen, which I've done more times than I care to admit, is sometimes even when you're just looking at the reconciliation here, it's easy to accidentally uncheck a box. And if you do that, you'll notice that these numbers are off and you won't be able to update until you fix that. If somebody is reconciling on the two-step batch, you can see it breaks down your cash and your credit debit card payments here. We also have added print buttons to these screens. That's relatively new in the system. So if you would like to print this page, just make sure it's on the tab that you want. If you print it here on the payments tab, it's going to print just like you see. And if you switch to summary and do print, it's going to print just the summary. So that option's there though now if you'd like it. I'm going to go ahead and enter my actual amount here, and I'll post the batch. So again, not usually many errors that we find with the payment side. Now it's the transaction side where things get a little tricky sometimes. So I'm going to go to transactions and I'll hit generate. And you'll notice it's pretty anxiety ridden with all these red bars across the top. So whenever you see the text lit up in red, that means there's a problem that needs to be fixed before you're able to update. It does tell you what's wrong, but sometimes the message, especially if you haven't done this a lot of times, it's a little bit unclear what you have to do. So I'll just tackle them one by one and we'll see how they get fixed here. So the first one that comes up is error debit and credits do not match. And I've seen this a few times, especially as of late. If we look here at the error, you can see the number that it's not matching by. And generally, I would say 80% of the time recently, it's because the sales tax account hasn't been set up correctly. So you can see this amount is $46.80. And if we're looking at the posting amounts here, well, $23.40 is half of $46.80. So we know that this is really where the error is occurring, is in the tax, because this is the one that the number's off by. So to fix this one, this is probably one of the easiest fixes, which is great. If you're getting this type of error, we do have to go to our settings and then to accounting. Then if we look at our chart of accounts, I'm going to go down to my sales tax account and you can see I have it listed as an expense. Sales tax accounts should be listed as a liability. And that's why it's throwing an error message, because it's trying to post it in the wrong direction, basically. So we'll save that, make that change as a liability. Now what you can do is you can leave the screen open and just hit generate again. So I'm going to do that. And we'll notice that all of those errors for the tax went away. So that's one done. I've made many more errors though, so there's a few more to take a look at. The other one that comes up all the time, I'm sure many of you have seen this already, is this one right here, where it says cannot post payment for overpaid charge, update charge amount, or refund payment. So whenever there's an error, it does tell you what transaction the error is on. So here you can see we have our lookup code, and we can actually just click on the lookup code here to go to the transaction that's having the issue. If I scroll down, you'll see right here, I have overpaid by $20.34. So now it's up to me to decide what do I want to do with that money. I can see that what's happened is there's a Good Sam coupon applied, and it's a pretty good guess that this coupon was applied after the customer, not the park, after the customer had paid in full. If we go to the history tab up here, because we always want to make sure that we're confirming what's true, right? We don't want to guess when it comes to accounting. But when we go to the history tab here, you can see that they paid and then the coupon was added. So because they paid in full and the coupon was added afterwards, Firefly says, cool, well, now you have $20.34 left, like extra. What do you want me to do with this? So you can't batch out until something is done with this overpaid amount. You have two different options. Three options actually in this case with the coupon. Option one would be to go to the circle and the three dots and remove the coupon. That would take it back to the full price they paid. So that's all said and done then. Option two is you can actually go to edit here and you can edit the price to reflect what they paid less the coupon if you wanted to do that. More the coupon, I guess, in this one. The third thing you can do is you can go to options and we can refund the difference. And I'm assuming in this case, you'd probably want to give them the $20 back. So I'm going to go to options. I'm going to go to refund. I'll do a partial refund because I only want to give the overpaid amount back. We'll do $20.34. And I'm actually going to return that to a reservation credit because I don't, they can use it towards firewood or something later. So I'm going to save that. And now you can see this says paid off, so it's happy. And if we go up here, we have a reservation credit available. So that takes care of any overpaid charges. Again, I would probably make sure the staff is looking out for that so that it doesn't come down to this when you go to do the end of day. But that would be the reason, is because they paid more than the charges at that point in time. And again, 9 times out of 10, it's either going to be a coupon or it's going to be because they removed a day, recalculated the charge, but didn't refund the difference. So that's the overpaid amount. Now, if I go back here and I hit generate, it'll be happy now, and you can see that error message is gone. The next one that's been coming up from time to time, especially for people who have started to add the reservation fee that maybe didn't before, or if you do the reservation fee only from the online portal and not at front desk bookings, you might see this message here, and it says no applicable reservation fee rule found for reservation fee charge, reservation fee. Now what that actually means, I'm just going to open this account here. What that means is this $350 here, it doesn't know how to classify that. If I go to my settings and down to property, then if we look at our fees, you'll see that my reservation fee here is set to only put it on the reservation from the reservation portal. Now, if we go back to that reservation and look at the history, you'll see that this reservation was actually made at the front desk. So that's where the disconnect comes in, where Firefly says, wait a sec, you don't actually have a reservation fee rule for front desk bookings. Why is this showing up on here? So to fix this one, we do have to go back into our settings. We'll have to edit our reservation fee and change it to all, just for a few minutes. You can switch it back after, but if you change it to all and hit save, and then if we regenerate, you'll see that problem goes away. Now, if you are a park where you are only charging the booking fee for online reservations and not for front desk reservations, then a couple times what you might also find is if somebody starts a reservation on the reservation portal, like they're at their home, they're booking it online, then they get stuck or they have a question, so they call the park, and then one of the clerks picks up the reservation. The system will think that it originated from the portal, even though it was finished at the front desk, and there can be a disconnect there as well. So if that happens, that's one of the reasons you might have to make that little switch, update, and then you can switch your rule back. But that would be for the reservation fee rule. Sometimes you'll also see it for the lock fee rule, and if that's the case, that would be here under settings, units. You'd go into the unit in question and you'd have to see what your lock fee rule is set up here. So if you had a lock fee and then removed it, or if you classified a charge as a lock fee, you might have to add that onto the unit as well. So those are the two that will come up that you have to do those for. But our reservation revenue is clear, no more red, so whew, that feels a lot better. But my POS revenue, now I have a problem here. And actually, this is the same, kind of the same problem. So we'll look at both the POS revenue and the inventory. With my POS revenue, you'll see it says no sales financial account found for POS item firewood. And if we look at my inventory, it says inventory financial account must be specified for firewood. And what that means is somebody set up firewood, did a great job, got the price in, but they forgot to either link the category or link the accounts to the item itself. So this one's also a really easy fix. We're going to go into point of sale on the far left. Then we're going to go to POS items. We'll find the item in question. So in this case, it's our firewood here. So I'll go ahead and click on that. Oh, there it goes. And you can see I have no category and I have no selection here in these accounts. There's two different ways to do this. If you have set up your point of sale categories to have default account codes, all you have to do is select the category. So I could select wood and ice. If you have not set up categories and you don't have default account codes set up to the categories, you do have to put in the sales financial account, the cost of sales, and the inventory financial account. I would say if you have even like a handful of items, I would just do categories, because then clerks, if they do have to set up a new item, they're not going to be making any mistakes. It's all done for them. They're not going to put it in the wrong GL code or the wrong bucket. So if possible, I would suggest setting up categories, because there's be just so much less room for error on all different parts. But I put my category in. I'll save that. And now when we go back to our journal entries, I'm going to hit generate again. And now you can see my POS revenue and my inventory are clear. Ooh, one more tab to look at. So the last one here is the reservation credit adjustments. And you'll notice that I'm getting a similar error message to what I had before. And this is error debits and credits don't match. This is true a lot of the time for the reservation credits, because I think when people set up the account, they don't realize what to call it or what to classify it as. So for the reservation credit, the account must be set up as an expense. When you're getting the error that debit and credits don't match, it's probably because the account isn't set up in the right way. So I'm going to go back to my settings. I'll go to accounting, and we'll look at our chart of accounts again. All of this, there is a troubleshooting guide with screenshots and explanations as well. So if you're like, oh gosh, I can't remember what exactly that error was, you can find that information in the knowledge base again. But let's go down here to our reservation credit account. Perfect. And you can see I have it set up as income, and that's why it's throwing me an error message. So when you're setting up Firefly, if you do decide to use reservation credits, they always need to be listed as an expense, or it will not let you update properly. So I'm going to change my account type there. I'm going to go back to my journal entries. Let's hit generate one more time and cross our fingers. And perfect. Now we can see I have no more red at the top, no more red bars, feeling a lot better. Now, like I was saying on the payment side, we also added the print journal entries to this screen as well. So if there is any of the information here that you do want to print, not a problem, you can print it. Just make sure, again, the tab that you want to print is open. The other thing about the end of day, which is great that I think some people don't realize, is you can see here, I'm doing August 13th. I haven't updated every day in my system. You can see this is from August 1st. Okay, and the rest is from the 13th, but you can see I haven't been updating regularly. Even if you don't update regularly, the system will still break it out day to day. So if you batch a week or 2 weeks together, you'll still be able to pull a report for day-to-day information. So just so you're aware, it doesn't matter if you don't batch it out every day, or if you don't go backwards and do it day by day, you can do it in chunks of time. So I'm going to go ahead and post this. If you have a lot of data, you might have also noticed a new screen that has been appearing on the end of day, especially on the transaction side. If you have a very large amount of data, when you hit generate, you'll notice that it does say that it's loading, and it kind of has a countdown timer. I don't have enough in here to show you that, but it has a countdown timer, and it doesn't auto reload. So instead of having to do smaller chunks of data like we had to before, you can set it, walk away if you have to, and go take care of a customer or do something. And when you come back, it'll keep trying to load in the background until it has loaded. So you don't have to keep trying to find that sweet spot in order to batch out, again, if you have a lot of data. So that's a really great improvement that I was so grateful for. It's made it so much easier. But that is the end of day. Those are the most common errors that I see and kind of how to fix them. If you do run across any that you're like, I don't know what to do with this, we're happy to help you, of course. And again, there is a knowledge base article with troubleshooting for all those as well. So let's talk about
so sorry, Adrienne. We did have a couple of questions come in. So I was wondering if we could pause for just a moment.
Yeah, for the troubleshooting. Yeah, that's perfect.
Perfect. Before we jump in, Bob, you've had your hand raised this whole time, so I'm turning on your mic. You might still have to turn it on your end, but go ahead and ask your question. I think you might just have to click unmute on your end, but your mic is enabled on my end now. All right, while you're working on that, a couple other questions that came in the chat. How would I recoup the reservation fee if we don't charge for walk-ins?
you'd have to either build it into the price if you don't want to charge it to the customer. I would say like if you raise your rates a little bit, you could build it in that way. But aside from charging separately for it, it would come down to like your pricing, to be honest.
Awesome, thank you. And then another question came in while you're going through this. Do we have to switch it back and forth every time someone books at the front desk?
Well, no. So like the only time you'll have to switch it if you're getting that error message. So if you have it set up where you don't pass that 350 along, or if you always pass that 350 along, it won't be an issue. It's only if it's like it started one way and ended another that it becomes an issue, or if you changed your procedure at some point.
Perfect. And then the last question we got during this section, where do I find the accounting tab?
Oh, so you might, if you don't see it, it just means it's not enabled for you yet. So the permissions do have to be turned on. So that's here under settings. And if we scroll down to users, I'll go into my user here. You have to make sure that the accounting settings and procedures are turned on. So settings gives you access to the settings here, and then procedures gives you access to the accounting tab here, which allows you to do the end of day. Because I assume that sometimes you might want to have clerks be able to do the end of day, but not actually do any of the setup, right? So that's why they're broken out into those two settings there. Once you have this turned on, when you go to settings and accounting, you do have to choose your accounting method and just set up the whole thing before you can even do the end of day. But
And
if you
then we
can't,
have,
yeah,
oh, go
sorry,
ahead.
if you can't see it, it's probably just not enabled on your account.
Perfect. Yeah. And then if you have not set up your accounting at all for your park, we have a step-by-step guide for that as well. Awesome. Bob, I see you were able to unmute. So go ahead and
Yeah.
ask your question.
Well, I haven't been able to see anything that Adrian has shown since the beginning of the presentation.
You can't
Oh,
see my
no.
screen at all?
I have no idea, I've not seen anything, so
There will be a
Um,
replay that we can upload.
Yeah, I'm gonna send out the recording. It might be maybe like on another tab. It can someone else maybe throw in the chat? I can see the screen, so I was thinking if we're having technical issues, everyone might be like throwing a bunch of notes in the chat saying, it's not working. But it might have opened. Sometimes Teams is kind of funky. It might open like in a different tab for you on your computer. There's different views in Microsoft Teams too that might be able to help.
yeah. And the other issue I had was I was not able to go into the chat area to ask my question, and I finally went over to the question and answer area, and I posed the question there. So, but there was no response. So I'm not sure what's going on.
Okay, yeah, I'll take a look and see if there's anything that we can do from our end. Yeah, I'm so sorry about that. We are also recording it though, so it'll be on YouTube, which I know is not as ideal as you're trying to walk through the step by step. But in the chat, one of our coworkers, Lauren, just sent there's settings for you to click through, maybe more view, and then you can focus on you can choose to focus on the content. That might help pull up that screen as well.
Well, all I see is chat is only available during the meeting, and no area to actually type in a question.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. I'm not great at Teams troubleshooting. I'm so sorry about that. I don't know what's going
Yeah,
on your screen.
that's all right. I'll look for the thing on YouTube afterwards, but without seeing what Adrian's talking about,
It's hard to follow.
Definitely hard to follow. Well, I'll resend the link too, and then maybe if you can leave and then come back, it might refresh for you.
All right, let me try that.
Okay. I'll put that in the Q&A response to you. Thanks. All right, and that was the last question, Adrian, for this section in the chat.
Okay, cool. So then we'll go on to everyone's favorite part, reconciling. So once you're able to batch out everything, then you can just make sure that all the numbers really make sense. And the first part of reconciling is making sure that the money you're getting from the processor, from your bank deposit, is actually what you're collecting in Firefly. And again, this will be the same for any accounting method because payments are payments, regardless of what accounting method that you're on. There are two reports that you can kind of compare against. So we're going to go down to reports at the very bottom here. And the first one is my favorite, the journal entry summary. So I'm just going to do July because I know I have some good data for that. So we'll do last month and I'll hit run. And you can see this is the breakdown basically of how my payments and how my revenue all flowed through the system. And we'll go into how to read the journal entry summary after we do the reconciliation. For your journal entry summary, though, if you just want to know how much money did I get, period, you'll want to look at your cash account. Now, in your system, you might have it broken up into a couple accounts. You can break out cash, checks, credit card, bank transfer, however you want to break it out. You might have a couple accounts to look at, and that's fine. Just be aware of that, basically. The other thing you can do too, if you have broken them out into lots of different accounts and you just want a total, it might be easier to just select the accounts that you want to see. So we have made this an awesome checkbox function now. So now you can see, like, you can just check the GL accounts that you want to see. You don't have to see them all in the report, which is super handy if you want to just pinpoint or look at, just payments, for example. But I only have one account, so mine's pretty easy to work with. And you can see here that my post amount is $49.28 So I'm going to remember that number. And I'm going to open another tab just so that we can see them side by side. But of course, you could print yours, which is probably easier to look at. But if we go down to reports again, I'm going to go to the payments report. Now, the payments report is just a list of all payments that you've collected for the date range entered. It has nothing to do with the end of day update. So the payments report, you can always run at any point of time. No end of day has to be done. It's just based on the payments you put in the system, plain and simple. So I'm going to do the same date range. I'm going to do last month, so July. And the important part of the payments report is that we want to make sure that we go under payment status and change this to paid. If you leave it on all and you have scheduled, pending, or failed payments in there, you'll have a heart attack because your numbers aren't going to match up and you're going to wonder why you're missing money. We don't want that. So make sure you change the payment status to paid because we only care about money that we collected. If the payment failed, you never got that money. So obviously it's not going to be in your bank account. So don't worry about it. So if we hit run, you'll see here that my total is the $49.28.36. And if I go back to my journal entry summary, $49.28.36. So those two numbers match, which means I know everything has been accounted for. Now, of course, we do want to take that number and go to your processor and make sure that that number makes sense. But as far as Firefly is concerned, everything that's been recorded in the system has been accounted for both in the payments report and in the journal entry summary report. So that's good news. The nice thing about the payments report is that you can see we have our credit debit card totals here, we have our total cash, and we have our total refunds. Now, one thing that you might find if you go to check your processor or the bank deposit after the batch out, and you see that your number of credit and debit cards is off here, 9 times out of 10, the reason, well, there's 2 reasons, but the big reason is if you have processed a card as offline in Firefly, it did not go through the processor. So you can check this payments report and look at the process method here and see if you have anything that's processed as offline. I might not have in this one. No, I didn't. I did it today. So let me just show you what it looks like. So if you're running that and you see this offline payment here, that never hit your processor didn't even know that happened, and that could be the big reason why you're out in Firefly versus the processor. So I would say if you do use the processor through Firefly and you do see an offline payment, it could be from a migration, but you probably want to check with the staff as why that's offline, because it didn't actually happen, basically. Let me go back to last month. The other thing that can happen with your total debit and credit cards not matching is the batch out time. So Firefly is set to your time zone. So whatever time zone your park is in, that's the time zone Firefly is in. The processor, depending on who you're with, they can be set up to different batch out times. So you'll want to ensure that your processor, you have to do this through them. Unfortunately, we can't do it on our end, but you'll want to ensure that your processor is batching out at midnight, your time as well, so that you're comparing apples to apples. So that's the other issue that we sometimes find too. But again, as long as your payments all match, we're good and we're happy. But let's go ahead. We're going to go back to the journal entry summary. And we want to make sure that this post amount here is accounted for with all the money down here. Now, the easiest way to demonstrate this is I'm like, to be honest, if you look at the top here, you can see that the total debits and the total credits actually are the same number. And in this case, that would mean everything is accounted for. But sometimes we need a little bit more proof than, oh, the numbers match, right? And before I get into this, just realize that this and this column are literally just the addition of this column and this column. These numbers don't mean anything. They're not the money you've earned in total. It's literally just math. So please don't think that these are your totals for anything, because they're not. But they do show that your debits and credits match, which is the goal. So I'm actually going to export this to Excel, because I think the easiest way to demonstrate this is in Excel. So let's take a second here for my computer to open this up. There it goes. Okay. So basically, here we go. I'm just going to do a little spacing here. So the inventory account and the cost of goods sold account, I'm going to move these to the bottom just for demonstration purposes. Those two are going to basically cancel each other out. Those aren't part of your revenue totals. So basically, this is the money that was sitting on the shelf. This is your inventory asset. So when you put inventory into the system, say you have $50 in chocolate bars that you paid $50 for, you're selling them for much more, but the system holds that $50 in the inventory asset account until you sell the item. Once you sell the item, you can see that it comes out of the inventory asset account and goes into the debit of the COGS, the cost of goods sold account. So these two numbers, they match, that's great, but they aren't in your revenue totals. So please don't count them as revenue, because they're not. Now here we have our asset account. So that's our money in. So again, if you do like cash, checks, credit card, you'll want to make sure that you combine those together into one number. And then here we have our deposits, and then our sales tax, and then all of our income accounts. So if I go to the bottom here and I do an auto sum, you'll see that this number and this number are all accounted for. And that's exactly what we want. So now that we have proof basically that our revenue numbers match what we've actually collected. So if you're wanting to make sure that all your numbers are kosher, I think the Excel spreadsheet is a really easy way to just to confirm. Usually it matches, right? It's all good. But I know, especially for accounting, you want to make sure that you know where everything's going. So that's one thing you can check. Now, in terms of getting more information about the accounting, we have a couple new features in the system that are just awesome. So if you do find that there's something off, or you're like, I don't really understand why this number is like this. Say, for example, you have daily and monthly income, and your daily is just so much higher than your monthly, but you know you have lots of monthlies, and you're thinking, oh, my goodness, what went into that account? How did I get that number? Now, if we go back to our reports here, we also have the journal entries report. This is one of my favorites, so I'm pretty excited. When you go to the journal entries report, you can load whatever date range you want. So again, I'm just going to do last month. We'll stick with July. And you can load everything, but that's a lot of information, because this shows you every single in and out of every single account for the time range entered. So you know, like if there's cash, if there's deposits, if there's revenue, there's a lot of in and outs happening there. So if we want to simplify it and we just really want to narrow down one specific account, you can go through the list here and check mark the one you're looking for. So I want to see what's going on in my RV income daily. So if I run this, then this will tell you exactly what has hit this account. Anything that went in, anything that went out, who it was, what the dates were. You can see there's just lots of information here. So it's pretty awesome for pinpointing things that went wrong or that were misplaced. A lot of the time, it's only just because maybe the charge wasn't set up correctly, or the unit wasn't set up correctly, so the system didn't put it into the correct bucket. But at least this way you can find it, fix it, and then continue on. The other great thing about this report is if you click on it, so let's go to, well, this is my dog. I'll go to Caliadney, that's my dog. If we go to this account here, it was a canceled reservation, but now I can see it took me exactly right to this account and what happened. So clicking on the entry itself will take you to that reservation, which is also super helpful. The other thing that we added here, which again, very excited about, is if you go to the Options tab and you do View Accounting Info, it tells you all of the journal entries that were created for that specific payment. So if you are on cash basis, you'll want to look at the payments themselves. If you're using hybrid or accrual, you can still see the payment side on hybrid and accrual, but there's also a view accounting info over here. That's for the hybrid and accrual accounts. Just because it recognizes revenue differently, we have two kind of spaces for them. But again, if you're trying to pinpoint something, you're trying to see what happened, options, view accounting info, that's enabled now for everybody. So I was very excited that they enabled that, because again, you can see exactly what happened. If there was a refund, you can see the refund happened. Like every single movement is now tracked in here. So if there are any questions to your staff or like what happened, who did it, you can see what date it happened on. You can look at the history to see what history happened and ask whoever you need to ask. One other thing too, if you're noticing that your revenue is going into the wrong spot, I've seen quite a few times camping fees be classified as reservation fees. And the reason that this happens is I'm just going to go to the circle and the three dots and hit edit, is because this, where it says, what is this charge for? A lot of times, especially when people were new, they might have set the recurring charges up incorrectly. But if you see on a camping fee that this says reservation fee, that's not the correct charge type. And then it's going into the wrong bucket. So if you do keep seeing like a monthly fee going into your reservation fee income and you're like, why is it going there? Why is it so much? Look at that detail. Find the one that's a crazy amount, because it's always going to be like $3.50, $5, whatever you charge for your reservation fee. So if you see $6.50 in there, it's a flag that something's wrong. Edit the charge and then just change it to reservation unit. Once you save it, it'll recalculate and adjust it for you. So you don't have to go back and make a manual adjustment. It will adjust on the day that you did it. So just so you're aware. But that's a big one I've been seeing only because I think people get confused when they're first beginning setting things up. So if it is monthly fees, please make sure it's set up as a reservation unit, not a reservation fee. One other thing, not so much with the accounting, but just in trying to match all your books, is the invoices from us. So if you go to your name at the top and then go to account, and if you go to your invoices, you'll see what you've been invoiced for every month here. We have an awesome new report to really help you figure out. It's very transparent. You'll know exactly what you were billed for. So you can see here, I was billed for 5 overnight reservations and 22 long-term reservations. Didn't know my park was that busy, but I guess it is. And if I want to see the breakdown for that, like the proof basically, if we go to reports here on the left, we're going to scroll down and we're going to do billable reservations or billable long-term reservations. So if I do my billable reservations for this last one here, those are the 5 there. So brand new reports that are in there. So please use them, take a look at them, make sure everything looks right to you. But that's basically exactly how we're billing you. Yeah. All right. So I'm just going to jump back really quick one more time to this journal entry summary report, just because I have had a lot of questions about this one recently. So basically, looking at the journal entry summary, for your asset or your cash accounts, debit is money in, credit is money out. So this would show me that I did $920.50 in refunds in the month of July. The post amount is the difference between the two. So that's the money I actually made. For your income and your liability accounts, it's the opposite way. And I think this is what throws people too. So for these ones, debit is refunds, credit is money in, but the post amount is always what you've earned in that account. So I always say, look at the post amount. Like when in doubt, just look at the post amount, because this is if you're trying to report your sales tax or you're trying to get your numbers, this is what you actually earned during that time frame for this actual account. So if that helps clarify any of those questions, then yeah, the journal entry is my favorite. That's my favorite report, because you can see you can break it down in any way you want, and I think that's pretty awesome. But that is the basics of reconciling, different tips and tricks, the troubleshooting, our new awesome invoicing reports. So I guess we can open it up to some questions if there are any.
Yes, there are a couple.
Right.
So someone asked, what if I want to see income for a site type?
So if you want to see it for a site type on the accounting module, you'd have to have set it up for that site type. So you'd want a GL code for that site type per se. Under the reports though, if you just kind of want the general information, you can do the revenue summary report because it will break it out by site type here. So you can see, here's my, I only have 2 site types in my demo park and I only use the one for my testing stuff, but the revenue summary will break it out for you by site type.
Awesome, thank you. Someone said sometimes we have to wait a couple hours to pull a journal entry report for our numbers to match. So not as much of a question, maybe just a clarification. Is there anything they should be doing differently or anything there to note?
The only thing I could think of is like, as long as, so with the journal entry summary, it's based on your posting. What some people don't realize is if you start the batch and then go back later to finish it and check the report in between, if you've actually started posting the batch but didn't complete it, it will load stuff in the report. So it sounds like maybe things aren't being completely batched out and it's loading somewhere in between. And then like you do it again and then it like adds all the numbers together. So there shouldn't be a delay as long as you've actually posted the batch.
Awesome, thank you. And then one more question. In the journal entry summary example, the deposit account didn't clear out. Can you show how to troubleshoot that?
So the deposit account not clearing out, it's really, honestly, it's pretty hard to troubleshoot it. You can look at the deposits that would come to going into the the journal entry here itself to see what didn't go through. But if you have money in that deposits account, it's usually because like a reservation credit was used. It was sitting in the deposits account and then it was used during that time, so it came out of deposits, or vice versa. Maybe it went from revenue into deposits, depending. So usually it's that reservation credit movement, to be honest with you. But to actually troubleshoot it, like I would say, oh, I didn't want to load all that. You could definitely go through this detail, but you'd have to comb through each of the deposits to see what cleared out. Because you can sort it by name, though, it might make it a little bit easier. And you can export these too, sorry. So if you could export it and then like do the debit and credit comparison in an Excel spreadsheet, but yeah, not really a fast, easy way right now for that.
Cool, thank you. And then Sarah, I just gave you the option to unmute. So if you wanted to ask your question, go ahead. And then while she's working on that, if anyone has any other questions, feel free to throw them in the chat. I'm also checking the Q&A if you're unable to add to the chat, or you can raise your hand and I can let you unmute as well.
Oh, and then one thing I didn't go over either was the transfer. So we can just, if there's any other questions for that, then we'll throw in the transfer at the end. Just because I know that won't apply to everybody necessarily.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
So quick question about the reservation credit. It is going into the deposit account. So we have the chart of accounts. And when we do a reservation credit, it's going into that deposit account.
Yep.
And it's kind of messing up our QuickBooks. Would you suggest us creating a QuickBooks category or a chart of accounts for reservation credits so that it's working out in our books?
Yeah, that probably would be easier. It does have to go through the deposits account because it basically, like when you put the credit on, it is money that you're holding for future stays, right? So like it is technically a liability and it should be in the deposit. So it does offset against that and there's no way to stop it from doing that.
Okay, so it will always go into the deposit account.
Yeah.
Even if we set up a new category in our QuickBooks.
Yeah, because like it has to have the 2 entries, right? So.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yep.
All right. And then Jim said, I have a report question that is tax related.
Okay.
So let me see if I can find Jim. If you don't mind clicking the raise your hand button, I can let you unmute. Or if you're typing in the chat, then that works as well. Perfect. Okay. And you should be able to unmute now. So go ahead and ask your question, Jim. Thanks. You should be able to, you might have to click the microphone button on your end.
Me now?
Looks like you're good.
Yep.
Okay. So it's actually Krista that's answering the question. Jim here with me as well. But so we have to run reports when we get ready to do like tax breakdowns. And of course, you know, you have the tab for taxes collected,
Mhm.
but it really doesn't break out where they're from, I guess to say. So usually what we go to POS items sold because it shows like what categories they are in.
Yep.
But when you do that, I do believe it shows you for items that are paid and not paid, and we
Yes.
only need items paid. I had put in a request about it a few weeks ago, but I wasn't sure if anyone else was having the same problems because we ended up overpaying on our taxes for that reason.
But are you using the accounting module or no?
What do you mean?
Like, are you doing the end of day and stuff or no?
No, this is just separately.
Yeah, so if you actually set up the end of day and do the accounting module, you can break it out however you want to see it. So you could break it, and it's only going to be based on what's paid. So you could break it out into your different POS categories and have the report as you want it, basically.
So you'd have to do it in the journal entries and not in the reports, is what
That's
you're
what
saying.
that's what I would suggest for, like, I mean, you can use the revenue summary report, but it doesn't break it out by category either. We don't have anything right now that will do. Sorry, I'm thinking as I'm talking. I don't think we have anything right now that will do it as a report that's set up. But if you use the accounting module, we do have to set it up once, but then you'll have it broken down the way you want it always.
Okay, just the POS items sold. I understand they're kind of somewhat sold in a sense, but it's a little misleading if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
like because it's like the sale was created, because like
Right.
sale and payment isn't the same, right? So the sale was created, but the revenue wasn't earned or paid for yet.
Right.
So that's why, yeah. There is, I don't think POS payments, let me just double check it before I talk, but I don't think the POS payments tells you the tax amount, so. Oh, it does. You could do this one. POS payments does show you the subtotal, tax, and total.
But I don't think
So it
it
doesn't
shows
tell you by
the,
item, that's right.
yeah,
Yeah.
it doesn't break down the category.
No, it doesn't. Yeah, so I would say like the best way would be to set up the accounting module with the category breakdown that you want.
Okay, I will get Jim to try to help me with that then.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you can always book a appointment with me and I can help you set it up, no problem.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Awesome. We had a few more questions come in. The next one from Holly, our credit card capture machine is not networked to our computer, so all of our sales are offline. None of our accounting features are activated or set up. Will accounting still work if we process offline? Well, the accounting features.
Yeah, 100%. So like I was just like if you always process offline, then having the accounting set up would be beneficial, just so that you know what you have in the payments is what you actually have put through the system, because you would want to make sure that your terminal matches whatever you put in Firefly. And if there's a disconnect there, then that would be important to know, right? But it doesn't matter. You don't have to be processing payments through Firefly to use the accounting. It'll work the same regardless. That was just if you were trying to balance and were having problems, that's a big reason why. But yeah, it doesn't matter. You can do offline for everything and still use the accounting, and it works great either way.
Awesome, thank you. Another question from Luna, how can I get the electric reading to send an email to notify the amount prior to the late notice being sent?
So it just depends on what you have set up with your settings here. So sorry, there we go. Put the due date. You'd want to have the due date in the future then, because it'll send the new charge email notification the next morning. But if your due date is set for like the same day, it'll look like it's due the same day. So if you push out this due date a few days, this will mark it. This marks what the due date is. So it won't send the late notice until after whatever date you put here.
Awesome, thank you. Another question from Kim. Our policy is to charge $5 for canceled reservations, but now is showing money sitting on their account. How do I clear all of these?
So by money sitting on the account, if you mean like there's a balance owing, if you can either zero out, oh, I can't do it on this one. Okay. I can't do it on this because I don't have a good example, but there is an option to zero out the charge if there's a balance owing, or you can edit the charge to reflect the amount they've paid. So if they only paid $5, you could change it to $5. But it doesn't sound like you're using the cancellation module. So if you get your cancellation module all set up, it'll take care of all of that for you. So I would recommend setting up that because it's awesome. and less work, which is always better, right? Less work in the long run.
Way less work.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, and then another question. Tracy said, when a reservation credit is utilized to make a new reservation, is the Firefly reservation fee $350 charged again for the new reservation?
So because the reservation credit has nothing to do with a reservation being made. It's just money that they haven't used yet. So if they do make a brand new reservation, then yes, they'd be charged $350 again because it's a new booking.
Awesome, thank you. We do have a little bit more time for any other questions, so I'm gonna jump ahead and take over sharing my screen for a moment. But then,
sorry, Katie, can I just
go ahead.
quickly do the transfer? That's okay?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
sorry, go for it.
I forgot about it before, and I realize not everybody does it, but just so that you know, it is an option. If you are using the accounting module and you are doing your end of day, here under accounting, there's a transfer batches option. And what this allows you to do is select the end of day batch outs that you've done and create a file for QuickBooks. So right now we do only have it compatible with QuickBooks Desktop or QuickBooks Online. In this case, it would do what I had for July and what I just did for August. So you can batch it out in one file and import it into your QuickBooks software. The only thing is you just have to make sure that the account numbers that you have set up in Firefly are identical to the account numbers in QuickBooks. Otherwise, the transfer gets mad. So you just have to make sure the numbers match up. But what it does do is it creates for desktop an IIF file, for online a CSV file that you can just import and not have to do a manual transfer. And it looks something like this. So you can see it has multiple days in it here, and that would create the journal entries per day in your QuickBooks software. But that's all it is on that side for the transfer. It's pretty easy.
Awesome. And Sarah, I saw you threw your hand up, so go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah, just quickly, is there a way, Adrian, to run a report with the chart of account numbers and the categories associated? Could you just show that real quick?
Yeah, and that's new too. So that's exciting. It's under settings and accounting. Then we're going to do chart of accounts, and you can print Excel, whatever you want up here at the top.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Awesome. Another question, Natalie said, my reservation fee is not set up as an expense like you talked about earlier. How do I change this?
So the reservation fee should be income. Reservation credit should be expense. So if you go to settings and accounting, and then your chart of accounts here, you can see whichever account it's going into. If you need to make a change on the account, you go into it and just change the class and type here. But the reservation fees are income because, of course, like in Firefly's eyes, basically you're collecting it. Later, you're passing it on to us. But in terms of what Firefly knows is like, oh, you're collecting that money from the customer, it's income. And then, of course, you'll turn around and expense it, but you'll have to do that adjustment on your own. The reservation credit needs to be set up as an expense account. And then under payment methods, under settings here, that reservation credit needs to be linked to that reservation credit expense account. I hope that clarifies those two.
I think so. We got a thanks. Another question, how would you reconcile that transfer directly into QuickBooks if you already have QuickBooks connected to your business checking account? This already shows in QuickBooks as a revenue deposit. So how do you get this to not double count as revenue?
Yeah, that I don't know anything about QuickBooks. So yeah, the only thing I know about QuickBooks is how to import into it and how to put account numbers on. So that part I can't, I don't feel comfortable giving any advice there just because it's not at all my area of expertise. I just know a lot of people, they do like a clearing account to kind of move the two numbers and reconcile them together. But yeah, like I would assume that you would put the payments from Firefly into like a separate one than your bank account so that you can make sure they're actually reconciling.
Awesome. And Paula, I saw your hand went up. I did give you the option to unmute, so go ahead and do so.
Hi there, this is Paula. Hi, Adriana. Thank you so much for this workshop.
Yeah.
After listening all your information, I came to realize that basically every single charge that I have done, because maybe the credit card didn't go through, or because they came here and I did the reservation right at the office, I put it as reservation fee.
Okay. Oh, okay.
And it's like a lot of money. I just
Oh,
realized that. Yeah. So I don't know how, like, I saw, like, from your explanation that I can fix it and put like maybe reservation unit, or
Yeah, it's a lot, right?
it is a lot. Yeah. But so then you guys are going to fix it and that's going to become like my income actually, or how's that going to work out?
Yeah, so I'd have to look at your system and actually look into it and see if that's okay.
Yeah.
So if you can email me or set up an appointment after, we can go through your system and look and see what the best way forward is. If you're not going to use the accounting module, it won't matter. But if you do want to set up the accounting, we'll have to get it fixed in some way.
Okay. Well, I don't know about that. Like, what would that mean? Like, if I set up like the accounting option, then
yeah, then we'll just want to get it fixed. Otherwise, it's gonna. I mean, and what we can do is like going forward, we can fix it for the ones going forward. It's just when you set up the accounting, you do have to batch out from when you started to like when you are. Even if you don't use the past data, that's fine. But we still have to batch everything out that has been done in the system. You can't just be like, I'm starting today, you know? So we'd have to kind of figure out the best plan of action. There's a couple different things that we could do. So we could just map everything into like site income and then figure out the reservation fee separately and make an adjustment that way. We could do something like that.
okay.
Under accounting and posting batches, there is also a way to make a manual adjustment. So I could definitely help you work that out and we can adjust if needed.
Okay. And in terms of money, where that money went?
So this is just like for you to record how the money kind of came into you, like how it's broken out. So it doesn't matter how it's classified for you to actually get the money. It's just when you're looking at reports, it's for you to know, okay, this was site revenue, this was electric revenue, and that kind of thing. So the money should still come through your processor like normal. So that won't affect anything on that side.
Okay, so if I put like a reservation fee of like $350.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Like, I mean, it won't like, it doesn't matter for you getting your money.
Yeah, so it doesn't mean that those 350 goes to you. They still come to me, but for accounting purposes, it's going to be a mess because
it's going to look like it was the wrong bucket, basically. Yes.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Okay, well, sure. Yeah, I'm up for that.
Yeah.
So, what email where can I send you an email?
I can throw it in the chat as well. Yeah, so that way people can have quick access to it. But it's our support inbox, and then we can route it as needed. So it's support@fireflyreservations.com. But then also, Adrian, if you want to show the button in the bottom left of Firefly, you can actually click this and type your message, and it will go to our team as well.
Okay. And it's where did you say?
The bottom left. If you're in Firefly, just under like the menu section on the left, you'll see a little support request at the bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you click on that, that goes directly to our support team.
Okay. Yeah. So there, should I explain like what's happening and then?
Yeah. You can just say that if you want to set up a meeting, you can just say that, or just say I have accounting questions, or you know, whatever is okay.
Okay, super. Yeah. I will do it right now. Thank you.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you. Another question that came in, we use an add-on for our electric deposit. What is the best way to pay the last electric with that? Right now we use a reservation credit for the amount that was held.
Oh, okay. So is the electric deposit add-on like this, like a security deposit that they're paying for at the time of booking or when they come in, and then you're using that money towards a charge, or are you refunding it automatically to a reservation credit?
They said yes. So I think the first.
Okay. So when you're, let me just pull up somebody here. Don't judge all my really sad, my sad reservations. So basically, let me just add, and normally we don't necessarily, I don't have a meter set up on this one. Let me go to someone I know does. I know Jean-Luc Picard here does.
And then they also said their last electric gets paid with it.
Yep, that makes sense. A lot of parks do that. So what we'll do here is let me just add a charge onto here. Electric meter. Normally, please do it through the meter readings. But let's say it's $75. And I'm just gonna go, oh, I do already have a security deposit down here. Let's see. So here's our security deposit. Pretend it's an electric deposit. If you want to use some of that $100 towards this last month electric up here, we're gonna go back down to the security deposit. We're gonna do options and transfer to another charge. When you transfer it, oh, come on. It allows you to choose the charge you want to transfer to. So I'm going to choose my electric meter. I'm going to choose to transfer part of the payment because I don't need the full 100. So I'm only going to transfer $75. What this is going to do on the back end is going to take it out of security deposit, that holding account, and put it onto electric revenue. So that's perfect. And then with the $25, I'm assuming if they don't use it all, the difference is refunded. So we could just refund the difference here. So we'll refund our $25 out here. There we go. Oh, my card's expired. All right. We'll just do it to cash. There we go. So we'll refund our $25 there. Now you can see it looks like they've paid none of the security deposit. So now we can go to the circle with the 3 dots and we can do 0 out charge, which will set it to 0, and everything's been moved and recorded appropriately.
Awesome, thank you. One more hand is raised. So Sarah, go ahead and unmute. And I think that's gonna be the last question. I just want to respect everybody's time. So we'll wrap up after your question, Sarah. Thanks.
So where you went to option and you selected 0 out charge,
yes,
is that a new thing? Because we've been going to edit and then creating a 0 for quantity.
Yeah, you can do that too, but the 0 out is faster and less room for error.
and it does the same thing. Awesome.
It does exactly the same thing, yeah.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, no problem.
Awesome. Well, if you guys have questions, come up, feel free. Our support team is all on these trainings as well. Everyone's becoming accounting experts like Adrienne is. So feel free to send your questions to our support team. We'd be happy to help answer. If you do not use the accounting module, you can reach out to support. We can send you that setup guide. We have some videos in there. Very easy to just have open on your screen and kind of go step by step. And then as you run into things, we can help you answer those questions as well. And then I wanted to share, so if you have a second and want to stick around, just always try to share something fun and, announcing things at the end of these sessions as a thank you for coming and attending. But if you missed it, we do some of the bigger changes in Firefly is we have automated cancellation. So Adrienne did show on her screen, you can go to a reservation now and click cancel. It's a part, if you have your cancellation rules and refund rules set up, your clerks just have to click cancel. And it's a very easy process compared to what it used to be. So if you have questions about that, you can also reach out to us and we can help you get that set up. There are better image options now in emails and policies. So that change was also a few weeks ago, but I wanted to highlight it in case you don't see our announcements. And then if you're a California park, there was a new rule that went into effect of how you have to display your fees for transparency for consumers. And so we updated our the actual booking side of things to match that transparency. So you should be good to go there. That was only applicable to parks if your address was in California. So the rest of you, probably most of you did not end up happening, but I know there's a few of us. I don't have a park, but I am in California over here, so wanted to highlight those things. And then coming soon, we have some grid enhancements coming really soon. I just can't share dates. And then I wanted to share, this is like hopefully a cliffhanger, but when you guys send us feedback on like the features that you want to see changed or little buttons here or there that might be helpful for you, we actually get to take that right to our product team, and it influences what happens with Firefly. So we just got done wrapping up some planning sessions, and I can share absolutely nothing other than that I am so excited for the features, big and small, that are to come. So keep your eye out. We still send out those monthly updates in the app. We send the little megaphone bell when we make changes, and then we also have a release notes page that you can see what's been happening. So thank you guys for being here and for joining us today. This has been awesome. And if you guys have more questions, support at fireflyreservations.com is the best place to go. So I hope that everyone has a great rest of your day, and thanks again.